Well, hello everybody. Welcome to a very interesting piece of World War II history. We're in Lenham, which is a beautiful village which is situated between Maidstone and Canterbury. And if you know Lenham really well, you'll know that its probably most recognisable feature is the chalk cross. And I'm having to speak up a little bit because we're literally on the main road, one of the arterial roads in part of Lenham village. But we're here today to discuss a very unusual air raid shelter, which was actually formerly a mortuary, then it became used as a town lockup, and then it became used as an air raid shelter. So basically, let me tell you about the story of this wonderful building. It began life roughly in the 1800s, and it was used as a mortuary, basically a workhouse mortuary. So you can imagine the sort of morbidness of this, which is quite bizarre when you sort of think about what it was eventually used for. And really sort of was quite an interesting part because where it's situated in the village, it's pretty much in the heart of the village really. You're just off from the main square itself. And then what happened was that it then went into a different life. So once it became the town mortuary, then it sort of, interestingly enough, became the town's lockup. And actually that's really what is probably the most well documented bit of this history, is that it then became the lockup. And it's kind of bizarre because when you're looking at it from the front of the building, you kind of see this door, and yet actually when you're inside, what they've done is they've blocked that off, and then you enter via the side door. So this actually pertains to its final bit of history. So like I said, bearing in mind mortuary, so then a town lockup, and then obviously then it moved on into becoming an air raid shelter. And what happened was that during World War II, this wasn't really uncommon necessarily, but sometimes what would happen is that they would find certain buildings that they felt could be repurposed or reinforced to become air raid shelters. And we say air raid shelters in the loosest sort of way because they weren't fundamentally built for that purpose. So sometimes what would happen is you'd get a surveyor or even a town's local who probably knew about building structures, etc., and they'd look at certain buildings and certain structures. Most of the time it would be basements, and we've sort of covered that obviously before. And they'd reinforce them to make them relatively safe and suitable should there be an attack, that they would feel relatively safe. What you notice with this one, which again isn't necessarily uncommon, is this technically is what would be referred to as a civil shelter anyway, civilian civil shelter, which is exactly what it is. It's not military, but it's on a surface level. It's not buried underground. So it's fascinating being in here because really it's quite small, which you can sort of imagine, because again it used to be a former town lockup, so it's not like a big old jail. It's very small and very compact. Probably could fit in here maybe at a push, it's very hard to tell, maybe about 20 people at a push. But how much comfort they'd be in is up for debate. But the idea is that obviously if there was an attack, if the air raid sirens went off, etc., this would just be your first point of refuge. You come in, wait for the bombs to obviously fall, or wait for the attacks overhead, because obviously in Lenham we've got to understand that actually in terms of scale and where we are in context, obviously there would have been a lot of raids and attacks that probably would have been going on overhead, and we know actually from our history that literally our next town on, Maidstone, was actually prone to lots of attacks, and actually in the middle of it behind us in Lenham was obviously Ashford. So like I said, in context of its location, you're pretty much slap bang in the middle of like two significant towns in Kent that actually were prone to actual aerial attack from Germany. But it's absolutely fascinating. There's some incredible old photos as well that can be found within this. And like I said, for a humble sort of rectangular building, the history that it contains is absolutely fascinating. And it's really testament to really why, it's through the local council that this has been arranged through permission. It's actually taken a little bit of time to arrange because actually this was actually used as, they actually used it as storage. And basically, when I really got in contact with them, they'd obviously cleared that out because there's no point coming in when it was actually full of stuff, hard to get a context of it. But now it's just an empty shell, but a beautiful sort of shell nonetheless because of the history that it contains. So there you go, Lenham's town lockup, former mortuary workhouse, that then got turned into an air raid shelter during World War II. I think it's fascinating. I just want to say a massive thanks to Lenham Parish Council for allowing me exclusive access into this and to allow to sort of document this as best as possible. I gave you the history in a brief context because that's really what you need to know. It's just a story that this tells. It's three different distinct phases for its history. It's remarkable. There's some really fascinating little bits of history that's situated around here, and like I said, in Lenham regard this as an absolutely beautiful place. And it's nice to sort of see that this village is still really active and it's still really busy. And yeah, I've got a lot of personal great memories from here, so any excuse to come and visit is always a great opportunity. But thank you as always for watching. Hopefully you really enjoyed this brief little visit on Lenham Town Lockup / air raid shelter / mortuary. I'll of course see you very soon. Feel free to spread the word channel. Much love to all of you out there, and a massive thank you to Lenham Council for allowing me access into this and to document it, more importantly, so that next time you visit Lenham you'll see a beautiful little black plaque that obviously explains its brief and wonderful piece of history, and then obviously you can now get an opportunity to now see what it's like via this video. Alright, take care everybody. Much love to all of you out there. Of course I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.